Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder on Sunday, June 1st, 2014. And we're going to look at why the dean, we looked at the dean before, looked at pretty much everything I'm going to show you, we've looked at, and now it's just a little bit deeper. But this is about the judge of first instance celebrating Red Mass and the other things that go with it. So let's start with just the definition of a dean. And, they always put the good stuff right up front. One of the principal administrative officials of a diocese, right? He's an executive office. He's administrative. Didn't say judicial, said administrative, right? Didn't say legislative, said administrative. That's executive office, right? Administrative courts. The term was first used to denote a military officer having authority over 10 soldiers. In the 4th century, it came to be used as a title of certain minor officials in the imperial household. A completely civil aspect was given to the office in Anglo-Saxon times in England. I'd say that first in line, first in time, right? That sounds like a long time ago. The office of dean was given a completely civil aspect. The dean having jurisdiction within his district or tithing for trials of first instance. So not only was he the administrative end, they also gave him the judicial end in civil, complete civil aspect, right? So he is the judge of first instance, having jurisdiction within his district or tithing for trials of first instance. Basically, he's the judge of first instance. And, what does that mean? Well, that's the first guy you bring something to. So, an interesting thing. Now, let's look at what a dean did. And we've looked at this before, but where is this thing? I showed this last week. Girl had sent this to me. It was in the Observer, which is a newspaper of Catholic Diocese Rockford. I don't know if it's got the date on it or not. Yeah, July 6, 2012. Public servants received blessing at St. Patrick's Church in St. Charles. The initial tone at St. Patrick's Church here for the Elgin Deanery's Red Mass. It wasn't St. Patrick's Church having the Red Mass. It was the Elgin Deanery having the Red Mass. Celebrating the Red Mass. 22 June at noon. Sisters, greeting everyone, distributed Red Mass booklets to those who attended. Now, remember that Red Mass booklet. In a matter of minutes, the church was filled with more than 350 people, including parents with children, business professionals, and other public servants. Parishioners who came included the Honorable Robert Janes, the Honorable Robert Morrow, and the Honorable Joseph Grady, judges the 16th Judicial Circuit, Kane County. So there's 3 judges showed up. Monsignor Joseph Linster, Dean of the Elgin Deanery, right? So Monsignor. Now, he also holds the title of pastor. He's the pastor of this St. Patrick's Church, right? And pastor of St. Patrick's Parish. But he's the Monsignor, Dean of the Elgin Deanery. 2 hats. So as that, he's one of numerous parish pastors in a certain group of parishes that all combine together make this thing called the Elgin Deanery. And a deanery just being a distinct territory of a diocese. Then he held up a little book that contained the inalienable freedoms and rights given to citizens. But he didn't say, it doesn't say anything about the American Constitution, nothing. Just a little book. What did they do? They handed out some kind of book. Red Mass booklets. Go figure. So that was one of the things that Rose looking to find out from her guy is what was in the book. Plus put in a petition, which we've done, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's all the build-up stuff. So anyways, we got a dean. He's supposed to be a judge of first instance. We find a dean. He's holding a mass called a red mass, and they get, you know, attorneys and shit showing up. Well, not attorneys, judges, although they are attorneys. So following this homily, Monsignor Linster invited judges, lawyers, law enforcement personnel, and firefighters, civic and community leaders, and elected officials to come forward for special blessing. About 20 people stood as he asked God to give you courage and guidance in providing liberty for all. Now, an interesting note, the Honorable John Walters, also a judge at the 16th Judicial Circuit, who was dressed in his judicial robe and receiving the blessing, expressed his appreciation for being invited to attend his first Red Mass. As a member of the First Presbyterian Church in Elgin, he said, as a Christian I follow my faith and the example of Jesus Christ in my work. Well, it's kind of interesting that a Presbyterian is coming to a Catholic church to receive a blessing from a guy who is wearing a red robe. Oh, that's good. This is where it gets really interesting. So, Red Mass. A Red Mass is a Mass celebrated annually in Catholic Church for judges, attorneys, law professionals, students, government officials. The Mass requests guidance from the Holy Spirit for all who seek justice and offer the opportunity to reflect on what Catholics believe is the God-given power and responsibility of all in the legal profession. Originating in Europe, the Red Mass is so called from the red vestments traditionally worn in symbolism of the tongues of fire, the Holy Spirit, that descended on the apostles at Pentecost. Additionally, judges of the High Court of England and all doctors of law wore red robes. A little bit of the history. The Red Mass historical tradition, blah, blah, blah. The celebrants, government officials, lawyers, judges, would proceed into church clothed in red vestments or garments. Well, who's wearing the red? Let's go back and look. Who was wearing the red? It looks like the dean's wearing the red. Hang on just a second. Okay, we're back. One other thing I wanted to point out here. So I talked about the co-celebrants wearing red. There's only one guy wearing red that we can see. Nobody else got red on, except when you read this here. It says Monsignor Joseph Linster, Dean of the Elgin Deanery and pastor of St. Patrick's Church, along with 11 other co-celebrants from throughout the deanery, were preceded to the altar by members of the Knights of Columbus, blah, 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 blah. So there's 11 other people that we can't see that are wearing red. And the ones wearing red, according to this Red Mass, are the celebrants, so they're government officials, lawyers, judges, who would proceed into church clothed in red vestments or red garments. That's the real, that's the living. They're wearing red. Right? Who's the dead? It's these other guys. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Right? The living officials are wearing red. The living judges and so forth. And so when it says the dean's judge of first instance and there's a guy wearing red and he's the one over the district and he's the one giving the blessing to everybody else, yeah, it sounds like maybe we should talk to the dean, try to do something with the dean, and that's what we've been trying to do. And so here's kind of where we are. I got to start closing some of these out. Close that one out. Red Mass. Close that out. Dean. All right, so Dean, one of the principal administrative officials of the diocese. His office has been given a completely civil aspect, and he's the dean having jurisdiction within his district for trials of the first instance. So I can close this out. This is a baptismal certificate, and it's kind of what started all this was this latest go around with the church is that when I got my baptismal certificate, and you read a particular canon law and you just look at what it says. I mean, my mom is in her maiden name. It's like my mom and dad aren't married. And then the way I read the canon law that this was done by, I would say, well, yeah, they're saying I'm illegitimate, baptized pagan. And we'll get to the rest of that in a minute. But I've talked about this in these other videos, and really these are words that the Pope had used recently, or through one of his cardinals and so forth. And it's in the videos before this. Again, you just got to go back by upload date to about the end of April, and from there forward, I'm pretty much talking about church stuff. So, but then on the back of this thing. So this is the front of a baptismal certificate. Maybe a little bit. I don't know why that line's there. All right. And then down here, it's got the sponsors, which were what I would have called my godparents. You can see the church seal from the church that did this. Made a copy of the certificate. So this isn't the actual register. This is a certificate, right? The information taken from the register. But on the back, they have this thing for notations, like First Communion, Confirmation, Marriage. So if you were married in a Catholic church, right here, right, that should be filled in, the marriage, that marriage part. Be interesting to see if that's filled in for somebody who was married in a Catholic church. Is it actually on your record? It has the confirmation, but it doesn't have the First Communion. And I definitely had First Communion because it was the custom to have First Communion before confirmation when I was going through school back in the 60s. At the age of 7, Communion. About the age of 9 was confirmation. There, September 5th, 1958, right? So I just turned 9 when I had confirmation. So there's errors, in my opinion, on this. And this is one of the reasons we wanted to bring this to somebody. Say, hey, you got my records wrong, because there's another canon law that says if you don't have the 3 basic sacraments, baptism, Holy Eucharist, which is First Communion, and confirmation, you're not considered a full Christian initiate. And if you're not a full Christian initiate, then you're what this cardinal said you were in his interview that I talk about in the other video, the one just before this one. You're a baptized pagan. If you're not a full Christian initiate, but you've been baptized, well, then you're a baptized pagan, because to a Christian, everybody who's not a Christian is a pagan. Right? So there's some errors in the records. And that was one of the things we wanted to look for. So I had written some stuff and sent it out, got it on the internet and so forth, and lo and behold, here a week or so later, the Pope is talking about illegal children and comparing them to little green Martians and them being baptized, and then talking about this thing called the office of the ostery, which turns out could be called the office of the porter, or could be known as a doorkeeper, and it could be called a ministry, and blah, 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 blah. So, okay, well, now let's get a hold of a dean and ask him about that, because when you look at the term Monsignor, you soon find out that everybody who isn't a priest, and it could be very many priests, are Monsignors. And Monsignors are anybody who's been appointed to an office by the Pope. Title Monsignor implies simply a distinction bestowed by the highest ecclesiastic authority, either in conjunction with an office or merely titular. Not really sure what that means, but right. So those only bear the title of Monsignor who by virtue of some distinction bestowed upon them belong, as it were, in the family of the retinue of the Holy Father. Those who bear the title of Monsignor, who are familiaris sumni pontificus, so there must be various grades of Monsignorism. But here, instead of addressing patriarchs as whatever, and archbishops as your grace, and bishops as my lord, and abbots as gracious lord, one may, without any breach of etiquette, salute all equally as Monsignor. Right? So if it says bishop, archbishop, whatever, it's a Monsignor. Then a Monsignor is a bishop or archbishop. There is no difference. They're just holding different offices. But as far as the hierarchy is concerned, there isn't any difference. And so they were just appointed to an office by the Pope. And I thought I had that on here someplace. Yeah, but the title Monsignor implies simply a distinction bestowed by the highest ecclesiastic authority, either in conjunction with an office or merely tutelar. So when they become a dean, they get appointed to the office by the Pope. And I believe that's where their powers come from. Like a vicar general, he gets his power not from the local bishop, but from the Pope. He has ordinary jurisdiction like the bishop, but he gets his through the Pope. And the vicar general sits on a group of, sits as the moderator of the curia, the diocesan curia. And the curia is the government of the church. So I don't think you go to him as the vicar general if you needed to. You go to him as the moderator of the curia. But his job is to make sure everybody underneath is doing what they're supposed to do. And beneath him would be one of these deans. So the vicar general has jurisdiction over the entire diocese, like the county, and he's the circuit court judge. And the guys in the deanery, or they can be called vicarette, I think also. Vicarette, I think, is what they call them in, I think that's what John said they were called in Virginia. Vicarette is the name of the district instead of a deanery some places. And so you got the vicar general over the county, and then you got each of these guys in their district, and they're the judge of first instance within their district. And so because you're within their district, that's who you would take your complaint to. Because it's not a spiritual matter. Now here's the other thing. If you go to the diocese and talk to them about a court case, they're going to say all they do are marriages. And if you go into a civil court and you try to bring God in the courtroom, they say you can't bring God in the courtroom. Right? So, are they lying or what? Well, it doesn't appear necessarily that they're lying, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. But the main thing is anybody who's been, for this, is anybody who's been appointed to an office by the Pope is technically a Monsignor, even though they call themselves Reverend. Right? They can still be a Monsignor. It comes with the office. And so, because they were appointed by the Pope, they can't be relieved of duty by the local bishop. Only the Pope can get rid of them. Okay, and why this is all important is because one of the things that you can do, and we're going to look at some other canon law here shortly, the offense of falsehood can be brought to the judge of first instance. It's one of the things you can bring by petition. And so people are using falsehoods against you all the time because everything that they do in these courts is color of law, but the courts don't have God in them. It's the godless society. That's why the bishop was wearing red and the other judges were wearing black. Right? It's why the Pope says, the popes for centuries, right, that there's only salvation can be found only through the Catholic Church. And salvation means to be, it can mean save spiritually, save your soul, but it can mean remove you from a harmful situation, protect you from a harmful situation, right? If you say you're full of God, then you don't want to be in a godless society. Because in a godless society, they don't care about God. And that's what we're in right now, is a godless society set up by the Freemasons. So, hang on just a second here. So, late last week I had written this letter that I had sent out to my dean. Well, it was an email. I sent it by email. And I think that's important. Because, and I shared it on the last video I did, and a guy took it and he made it his, and he sent it to his dean, and he got an answer. But basically, let's see what this said. Greetings from just outside the kingdom. Our Blessed Mother is known to leave the window open, but I am in need of a ladder to enter. I contact you in your office of Dean of the East Deanery, Diocese of Grand Rapids, right? Because that's my guy. Yours will be different, could be different. And hopeful that you will help me overcome the last few obstacles in obtaining the instruments of my office and its ecclesiastic privileges. Pope Francis himself has pointed out there's an office in the church for the members of the laity when he referred to the existence of the ministry of the ostery. So first of all, maybe we should start calling it a ministry, because it looks like that's what they did. They made it a ministry. They don't call it necessarily an office. So, ministry of the ostrary. And famously said, who are we to close the doors of the Holy Spirit? See, right now we're closed out of the church. We're not in the church. You're not a full Christian initiate. Nobody is. In my opinion, you were registered as an illegitimate child, and you don't have the record that they use, the sacramental record, to determine if you're a full Christian initiate. It's got a big hole in it, like on mine, that says I never had communion. So I'm just a illegitimate baptized pagan. Well, I disagree with that. That's harming my God-given character. So someone's going to fix the record and let me in the frickin' church. This was during a speech last week pertaining, speaking about baptizing illegitimate children and comparing it to baptizing little green Martians. It doesn't take much more research to uncover the office of ostery is unlike any other. Right by baptism of the faithful to claim the right and keep the door. Right? So what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to be the keepers of the kingdom. And just like Adam made a mistake and let the devil in, let the serpent in, because he was supposed to keep the garden, he didn't. Well, now it's our turn. So, blah, 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 blah. This went on. And then, so Mark dean, he wrote him back. I didn't hear back from mine. I don't think anybody else who emailed anything heard back from their dean from their email. Other people have heard things, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Mark did get one. And it led to something. He sent this to me yesterday and Saturday, and it led to looking at something else like, oh, this is interesting. It has to do with the petitions. So, if I understand your letter, your request, the ostery is an old minor order of Porter, the first of the minor orders. It was conferred on those who received the townsure, blah, blah, blah. If you really want to read this whole thing, you can just stop and read it. I'm going to get to the part that matters. Pope Paul VI suppressed minor orders, including the Porter, August 15, 1972, in his Motu Proprio Ministeria Quadrium. So I went and read that to see what it had to say. And so that was about that. So he's saying, there was this order, and then it got suppressed, and but he pointed out where to go look, and if you want more, information on it. So regarding the baptismal certificate, I refer you to Canon 877, which would be applicable to your situation, not the other paragraphs you cited in the canon. Because one of the things we were pointing out is the fact that per this 8772, in the case of a child of an unmarried mother, the mother's name is to be entered if her maternity is publicly known, or if, either in writing or before two witnesses, she freely asks that it be done. Similarly, the name of the father is to be entered if his paternity is established either by some public document or his own declaration in the presence of parish priest and two other witnesses. I don't know. If you have your child baptized, does dad say anything? I'm a bad Catholic. I never had my children baptized. I have a problem with that right now, and I'm getting myself over it and going to get them done, but I got to get this figured out first. However, nevertheless, shame on me. Please forgive me. In all other cases, the name of the baptized person is to be registered without an indication of the name of the father or of the parents. So what are the other cases? Well, in case it's not an unmarried mother, which would be a married mother. That's what I based my complaint on, or my preposition. What he said was the parish priest of a place, this is section 1, in which the baptism was conferred, must carefully and without delay record in the register of baptism the names of the baptized, the minister, the parents, the sponsors, and okay, it says he's supposed to do that, the parish priest is. But it says here, if you put the parents in, it's going to show that you only do that if the child is unmarried, or if the child is a child of unmarried mother. In other words, not married. If she's not married, right, that would make you a bastard. I have proof. It was my first video on this stuff. So it's, so anyways, I'm not going to call him a liar, and he's saying, well, you should read it this way, and and to me, I say, well, no, we should read it this way. So what we need to do, because this just email is going back, say, well, I need a decree that says that that's the case. So, this is the motu proprio that the dean was talking about. Pope Paul VI back in 1972. Certain ministries were established by the church, offering service to the people of God according to their needs. By these ministries, the offices to be carried out in the liturgy and the practice of charity, right? So there's two different offices. Got one in the liturgy in the church and one in charity, which would be out in the world. So really, it's just what's the definition of charity? Deemed suitable to varying circumstances and entrusted to the faithful. The conferring of these functions often took place by special rite, which, after God's blessing had been implored, a Christian was established in a special class or rank for the fulfillment of some ecclesiastic function. So what is going to happen or should happen, because the office of the ostry or the ministry of the ostry or whatever, it's not in the line that goes for the orders, holy orders to become a priest and so forth. It goes over another way. It's a governmental office ministry, right? We got ministers in the government. Civil law is based on ministers. And so basically, you're going to be the civil authority for the church. Because unless you bring it to the judge of first instance's notice that there's a problem, there's nothing he can do. We have to bring it to him. Some of these functions, which were closely connected with the liturgical celebration, slowly came to be considered as training, right? So, reception of sacred orders. So, a lot of the things that used to be for the laity have been switched over to the sacred orders. The result, such offices as porter, reader, exorcist, and acolyte are called minor orders in the Latin Church in relation to a subdeaconate, deaconate priesthood, which are called major orders. You would have to do these first before you could go to the other ones. Generally, though, not everywhere, these minor orders were reserved to those who received them as steps toward the priesthood. Yeah, except for one, and that's the thing to do with the porter, where you didn't have to be able to read, the office or the ministry of the ostrary. And but they use these to establish requirements for the holy orders. So Vatican Council II talked about this, and they did not decree anything concerning it for the Latin Church. The Church earnestly desires that all the faithful be led to that full, conscious, active participation in liturgical celebrations called for by every nature of liturgy. Such participation by the Christian people as a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a purchased people, is their right and duty by reason of their baptism. So by your baptism, you should be a citizen of a nation, the holy nation, whose government happens to be the Catholic Church. Not the Roman Catholic Church, just the Catholic Church. The Universal Church. The government of the Universal Church is called the Catholic Church. And its headquarters is Vatican City State. And so when they talk about the Holy See, in fact, I just heard a cardinal give his explanation for the Holy See. He said it's the Pope and all the offices that support him in governing the Universal Church. All the offices that support. Well, one of those is going to be this office of doorkeeper. And so you're going to have a government office within the church, the Catholic Church, just like those cardinals do sitting over there. So you'll be able to have Holy See passport. And just like there's Israeli citizens, and to be an Israeli citizen, you just need to have, it's not an ethnic nationality. It's because your religion is Jewish, makes you an Israeli citizen of Israel, if you desire. If you claim that as your religion, you can have Israeli citizenship, and now you can have dual citizenship, and by gosh, they'll even let you be senators in the United States, being a citizen of Israel and a citizen of America. Go figure. Well, why can't I have one? Says that I'm in the Holy See, a citizen of the Holy See, and a citizen of America. Well, I don't want the one for citizen of America because that's a dead society. They wear black. So, among the particular offices to be preserved and adapted to contemporary needs for those are two that are in a special way more closely connected with ministries of the Word and the altar, right there. So the reader and the acolyte get incorporated into the subdiaconate as time goes on. In addition to the offices universal in the Latin Church, the Conference of Bishops may request others of the Apostolic See if they judge the establishment of such offices in their region to be necessary or very useful because of certain reasons. To these belong, for example, the ministries of porter, exorcist, catechist, as well as others conferred upon blah, 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 blah. Well, it's the Pope from the Apostolic See that just said that the ministry of the ostery porter still exists. It's in accordance with the with reality itself and with the contemporary outlook that the above-mentioned ministries should no longer be called minor orders. Okay, so we're not going to call them minor orders anymore. We're not going to call porter, exorcist, catechist minor orders. Their conferral will not be called ordination, but institution. So you're going to be instituted into a ministry of porter. Now, the ministry of catechist, this is if you just say, well, I want to get in, right? So now you got to go to catechism to learn about the Catholic faith. But they're still going to give you an office in the church to protect you from these crazy bastards out here until you get your, until you get whatever it is you need to satisfy them that you're a porter, which would mean I think you need to be confirmed. But it said you can have it by baptism. I don't know you need to do anything else. That's what we're going to find out. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So this goes on and on and on. See, first townsure is no longer conferred, right? So you don't need to have that anymore, because that was one of the things this guy talked about, and the father talked about in the letter to I believe it was Mark, where he was talking about the first of the minor orders was conferred on those who received the townsure, right? So he was talking about the old time, right? But he was nice enough to give this. It's like, hey, he's throwing us a bone. Go read this. So now I read it. So, okay, excellent. What up to now were called minor orders are henceforth to be called ministries. Okay, the ministry. What the ministry of? Ostery, ministry of porter. The Pope called the ministry of ostery, so that's what I want to use. And you can show. It's easy enough to find online, get a copy of it, and show the deacon. This is where he said it. Give him the whole freaking letter. Excuse me, the dean. Ministries may be assigned to lay Christians, hence they are no longer to be considered as reserved to candidates for the sacrament of orders. Right? So they can't just say, no, you're not becoming a priest, we're not going to give it to you. No, ministries may be assigned to lay Christians. Hence, they are no longer to be considered as reserved to candidates. Okay, so this is talking about the ones that really go to do with if you're going to become a priest, the ones acolyte and reader. But this is where we get to the potatoes here. The following are requirements for admission to the ministries. The presentation of a petition that has been freely made out and signed by an aspirant to the ordinary, the bishop, and in clerical institutes, the major superior, who has the right to accept the petition. Now, what's a clerical institutus? Well, that's like a deanery. A suitable age and special qualities to be determined by the Conference of Bishops, a firm will to give faithful service to God and the Christian people. That's what you need to have for admission into a ministry. You got to present a petition. can't do it by email. It's got to be signed. The conferring of ministries does not bring with it the right to support or remuneration from the church. Well, remuneration, you're not going to get a reward, recompense, or salary. So you're not going to be an employee, right? You're not going to get lost and found money. I'm not really sure what recompense was, but sounded to me it was like a reward. Support is the right to support is an easement which one man either by contract or prescription enjoys, right? You're not going to have anything by contract or prescription. But what you're going to have, right, because it said up here, way up here, but they conferred will not be called ordination. Their conferral will not be called ordination, but institution. Well, what does institution mean? Not like you've been institutionalized. Ecclesiastic law. The act by which the ordinary commits the cure of souls to a person presented to a benefice. We talked about getting the benefice last week. That's what institution is. Or in civil law, which is really what we're going there for, because this is the government of the church. Right? It's the government. Institution of heir, the act by which the testator nominates one or more persons to succeed him in all rights, active and passive. Either way, you're going to be instituted by institution. Benefice, in the most extended sense, an ecclesiastic preferment of dignity, but in its more limited sense, it applies only to rectories or vicarages. Okay, well, we get the advantage of the broader term, and the office of hostry, as we pointed out in the last videos, qualifies for this thing called ecclesiastic privileges. One of which is, do not harm, do not stop, do not bother, special courts, and a benefice. Right? And it's described as you're being called to the vineyard. Don't matter what time you get there, everybody gets paid the same. So who's ever there now, whatever deal those cardinals have, is the same deal you're going to get, even though you got the lowest job in the totem pole. You're just the doorkeeper. Yeah, that's going to end up being the most important job in the whole kingdom, because you're going to kick the heretics out of the church. And then out of society, we're going to conform the temporal order to the will of the Lord. So this is what a petition is out of canon law. But first of all, Canon 1476, any person, baptized or unbaptized, can plead before a court. You can go to the court of first instance, which is the dean, and you can put in a petition, whether you're baptized or not. Even though the plaintiff or respondent has appointed a procurator or advocate, right, an attorney, each always bound to be present. You show up at these courts, and so do they. Singular decree. So these are different things that a petition can be used for. A singular decree is an administrative act issued by competent executive authority, whereby, in accordance with the norms of law, a decision is given or provision made for a particular case. Of its nature, this decision or provision does not presuppose that petition has been made by anyone. Right? So this is saying, even without a petition, they can issue a decree based on law. Basically, is what I'm believing it's saying. But it's an administrative act. It's not a judicial act, and it's from the executive authority. And that's the frickin' dean. He's the administrator, chief administrator of a territorial land for the Pope. Whenever the law orders a decree to be issued, or when a person who is concerned lawfully requests a decree, or has recourse to obtain one, the competent authority is to provide for the situation within 3 months of having received the petition or recourse, unless a different period of time is prescribed by law. So the most it can take is 3, but forgetting how long it's supposed to take, if you are lawfully concerned, you can request a decree. And these decrees are going to be the things that are under the seal of the Court of Chancery. But within 3 months of receiving the petition. So again, you have to put in a petition. Can't send them an email. Can't send them a letter. I guess if you did a letter in the form of a petition, but I'd certainly say it was a petition. An aspirant to the diaconate or the priesthood is not to be ordained unless he has first, through liturgical rite of admission, secured enrollment as candidate from the authority mentioned in some other canon. He must previously have submitted a petition in his own hand and signed by him, which has been accepted in writing by the same authority. So we did some petitions. I'll show you one here shortly. So here's the thing. Mark didn't do a petition. He sent an email. He got an answer back by email. I didn't even know that this had happened until he sent it to me Saturday. But during the week, as we were getting through the week, Monday was a holiday. Didn't think anything would happen. Waited Tuesday because we had these emails out. Nothing happened. But Wednesday, Roe had as it turned out, Roe was going to have a meeting with her pastor of her church because she had set this up a month ago when she had gone to Chicago looking for the civil authority through the federal government. We learned this stuff since then, but she had already had this set up because what they told her there is we only work with community. She had gone to the community relations something or other in the Justice Department, and they're supposed to handle hate crimes. And they said they only work with community leaders type stuff or community groups. So, well, excellent. If the church is one, go set up a meeting with your church and tell them what's going on and have them talk to them. And since then, we had learned the things we were. So now it had changed what we were going to go ask them for. And so she was laying all this stuff out about this office and so forth. And the guy said, well, he said, it sounds to me like you pretty much know what you're talking about. But you need to talk to the dean about it. That there was really nothing he could do. And she was saying, well, I got all this information. Actually, oh, no, don't show me anything. You need to talk to the dean. And her dean had supposed to be retired. In fact, that's the guy in the newspaper clipping, Monsignor Linster. I hope I said his name right. He's retired. And that's what she said. He said, well, he's still a dean. So are you sure? So I'm positive. Or, he kind of got abrupt that she would question whether he knew who the dean was or not. Okay, fine. So she went out to where his office is supposed to be, which is another church outside of town, and went in there and talked to them there. And sure enough, yeah, Monsignor Linster was still the dean. But he was no longer the parish priest of this parish where the deanery is. But he did come in to do dean work still, and by the end of the day, Roe had gone back there with a petition, and they took it and put it in an envelope and put it in a drawer with other things in envelopes that were for the dean to deal with. And one of the interesting things that though they had said was that the dean takes the. Now I believe maybe this is because he isn't here all the time. There's a guy coming in a month, and Roe said, well, is this where he'll be then most of the time? I said, yeah, this is his office, but Monsignor Linster is semi-retired, so he comes in when he comes in, and as it turns out, he's going to be coming in Monday. But she had mentioned that he takes the seal home with him, which I thought was interesting. I said, well, that can't be the parish seal. The parish wouldn't be able to do business all week long if the Monsignor's got the seal with him, and besides, he's not the parish pastor anymore. But he is the dean, so he's got whatever seal the dean does. He's got the court seal. It's my opinion. He's got the court seal with him. He's the keeper of the seal, the Court of Chancery, within the jurisdiction that goes from you to him to the Pope. Right? He's the Pope's representative. So anyways, right, you have to submit a petition. Now, in your own hand. Now, so we didn't submit ours in our own hand. We typed ours, but we did sign them. So, I was talking to Bob in Arizona about this, and he said, well, he knew from before that his deanery was fairly close to him. So he went down on Thursday and gave him a copy of the petition we'll look at here in just a second There's nothing special about it. But he gave him a petition that he signed. That the dean was out. Here we go again. Well, at least leave it, and he did. But by the end of the day, ouch, or by the end of Friday, the dean had called Bob, and Bob missed the phone call because he was swimming with his kids. Really hot out in Arizona. Didn't have his phone with him. Didn't hear it. But it was the dean saying he had gotten his petition and he wanted to set up a meeting with him Monday or Tuesday based on his petition. So again, we're putting in a petition for trying to claim an office, but as you're going to see in a second, there's other things that it can be used for. Obtain a dispensation for irregularities or impediments. See, we may need a general dispensation to get the office because we were baptized pagans. All right, we got to get that fixed. A general remission, however, removes all penalties except those in the petition have been concealed in bad faith. So, right, whatever your debts are. Dispensation of irregularities and impediments. What's an impediment? Well, I got all this debt. We can absolve you of it. But here's the really good one. 13.6. This is for anybody now, right? If you don't want to claim the office, if you're a pope hater, whatever your thing is, you still may want to use this court for this reason. Canon 1361. A remission can be granted even to a person who is not present or conditionally. A remission in the external form is to be granted in writing unless a grave reason suggests otherwise. Care is to be taken that the petition for remission or the remission itself is not made public, except insofar as would be either useful for protection of God's name of the offender or necessary to repair scandal. Otherwise, it's going to be kept quiet. Remission, also known as remand, the proceeding by which case is sent back to the lower court from which it was appealed with instructions as to what further proceedings should be had. This is your appeals court. You're going to go appeal to the church court that the other court is using color of law against you, and they don't have a sworn complaint, and the plaintiff is a fictitious entity, and all the shit that we've talked about for years. You're going to take it to these people. So a judge cannot, and that would make it a contentious trial because it's you and another party. Not everything is contentious. Some of it's just civil. I just want to get something done, and it's ex parte. But we're talking contentious. A judge cannot investigate any case unless a plea drawn up in accordance with canon law is submitted either by person or of interest whose interest is involved or by promoter of justice. All right, so the judge can't do anything until you bring it to him, and you got to bring it by petition. And you take it to the dean of the deanery, in his office of dean of the deanery, in my opinion, not as the parish priest, dean of the deanery. A person who wishes to sue another must present a petition to the judge who is lawfully competent. In this petition, the matter in dispute is to be set out and the intervention of the judge requested. A judge can admit an oral plea for a couple different reasons. Easily investigated and minor significance. In either case, however, the judge is to direct a notary to record the matter in writing. The written record is to be read to and approved by the plaintiff. It takes place, the petition written by the plaintiff, as far as all effects of law are concerned. So if you're going to give it to them orally, they're going to write it down. And I've read in Michigan compiled laws where it talks about the district court clerks doing this. Lowercase district court. And this guy's over a district. Go figure. The petition by which a suit introduced must state the judge before the case being introduced what is being sought and whom it is being sought. Okay. And on and on and on. It can only be rejected if the judge is not legally competent. In other words, it's not within his jurisdiction. It's established beyond a doubt that the plaintiff lacks the right to stand before the court. Well, I don't know how you could do that because it's available to all baptized and unbaptized people. Some other, basically you didn't file this one 1504 and you didn't do 1, 2, and 3. If petition has been rejected by reason of a defect which can be corrected, the plaintiff can draw up a new petition correctly and present it again to the same judge. Right? Made a mistake, he can fix it. In the decree by which the plaintiff's petition is admitted. So here's the thing, right? Once it gets admitted, then they're going to do a summons. And in the decree by which the plaintiff's petition is admitted, the judge, the presiding judge, must call or summon the other parties to court. Which means he's happy with what he's seen and says you do have a case. And if he calls them to court, they're going to have to explain why the judge shouldn't find in your favor. It's a subpoena from the Court of Chancery, the court that a chancellor said back in 1917 that defy the Court of Chancery shall rain the thunderous wrath of the Vatican upon you. So if it ain't the Court of Chancery, it's going to call the Court of Chancery. It's going to say, hey, we got an ecclesiastic matter, and he's going to call the whatever judge, and it could be the judges that got blessed. That's why I'm thinking, hey, some of these judges are actually correctly holding their office. And because the church would normally call on the civil authority to carry out their, do their heavy lifting for them. So, hang on. So this was the petition that I wrote up. Instead of an email, a petition that I mailed mine to the dean at the address that I had for him, which was at a parish. But if you're close enough, you may want to go drop it off. Now that's what Rhoda did. So she took hers. Now she didn't do one necessarily like this, because I came up with this later, but it doesn't matter. Right? The idea is get the meeting. We'll get it all figured out afterwards. So she took hers down there and she left it, and they said, well, the dean won't be in. I said, well, can I get some kind of receipt that says you got this? Oh, sure. And I think there they made a copy of it and they signed it and gave it back to her. So I don't really have a file stamp, but I can do this for you, right? And she had washed the lady, put it in an envelope, and put it in the drawer, and just waiting for the dean. In Bobby's case, he went there, and I think they just wrote it on a piece of paper that they had received it from him and gave it to him. It wasn't like they made a copy of it and said received. It was received petition or whatever. Now the funny thing is, this deanery, when Bobby went there, well, look, he said he went there and he said he was looking for the dean, and they got the blank stare. What are you talking about? Said the dean, Father blah blah blah. Oh, you mean Father blah blah blah? Yeah, okay, yeah. No, he's not here. Well, do you know when he'll be in? No, he doesn't really tell us what his schedule is. He's in and out all the time. And Bob said, well, I have a petition I'd like to drop off and leave with him. And she said, okay, well, that's not a problem. Right? She didn't know he was a dean, but she knew what a petition was, and that him getting one wasn't that strange of a thing because the way she acted. Oh, yeah, it's not a problem. And she took it, and I think she asked Bob, can I ask you what the petition is about or something like that? And he said something about claiming an office or something, and she said, okay, not a problem, But she understood what a petition was, and so she says, yeah, I'll make sure he gets it. And now this guy has called. So then Bobby calls on Friday. Oh, yeah, he was here and he's got it. Okay, that was early. Day's going on. What's going on? Da-da-da-da-da. Kids get home. Let's go swimming. Missed the phone call. Priest did call. And so that was kind of based on this. So Reverend Sudlick, Dean and Judge of First Instance, East Deanery, Diocese of Grand Rapids, Province of Detroit. That's kind of, how it looks like things are. You got a deanery within a diocese and a diocese within a province. And the province is going to be determined by wherever the archbishop is that your diocese is in. Because they do call it the province of Detroit. When you look at the map, it looks just like Michigan. It's amazing. On this, the 29th day of May, in the year of our Lord 2014, I as Robert Allen Rulewski, right? Because I am that I am, but right now I, as Robert Allen Rulewski, petition His Holiness Pope Francis. I'm not petitioning Leonard. I'm petitioning the Pope for the execution of church law confirming upon me an office within the church, the ministry of the osterary. This unique minor order confers to members of the laity an office within the clergy, possessing ecclesiastic privileges as well as citizenship within the Holy See, as one of the people of God. So now they may say, well, you're not going to be in the clergy. So that's fine. I still get the ecclesiastic privileges. And it may not be called the minor orders anymore. It's called the ministry of the ostery. But there's a book that I showed that was called the minor orders, right on the book. And when you go open it up, an old church book, in there they call them the ministries of whatever. So, anyways, I present myself by right of patronage as patron to a vacant benefice within the Holy See. And this has to do with Christ is the founder, the church is the trustee, and you're the beneficiary of a usufruct. And that's what your benefice is going to be. And each one is set up individually for each baptized Christian. As a sovereign pontiff's representative within the district, his executor having the jurisdiction to confirm minor orders, because it does say that that's one of the things that a dean can do, is confirm minor orders. And again, these things come out of like the Catholic Encyclopedia. It's what they wrote. You say, go look at just tell them, go look at the definition of dean in your Catholic Encyclopedia, and then ask me let me know if you have any questions. It pretty much lays it out in there. So he's the sovereign pontiff's representative within the district. His executor having the jurisdiction to confirm minor orders, I ask you, Reverend Leonard Sudlick, to perform the ceremony. Hand over the instruments of my office, memorialize the event, and install me in my benefice without unnecessary delay. I attach a copy of my baptismal certificate, complete with errors, omissions, mistakes, or mistaken or intentional, that seem to evidence that I am registered as an illegitimate baptized pagan, and expect the slander against my God-given character to be eliminated. Sincerely yours in Christ, Robert Allen Rutluski, from the office of Christ. That's another one of those things the church gives you. Canon 204. Look at that real quick, and we'll be just about done here. Canon 204. Canon 204. Where are you? A people of God. Christ's faithful are those who, since they were incorporated into Christ through baptism, are constituted the people of God. That's who the Holy Land goes to, the people of God. Doesn't go to people that call themselves Jews or aren't the ethnic Jews anymore. Them people of God were left desolate by Christ in 70 A.D. at his second coming. So he'll be back in a generation. For this reason, in fact, he told the high priest, ye shall see me in clouds of glory. Right? He was in court, in an ecclesiastic court, giving his testimony. He told that high priest, ye shall see me in clouds of glory. For this reason, they participate in their own way in the priestly, prophetic, and kingly office of Christ. So Christ is an office. It's somebody who's been anointed as a priest, a prophet, and a king. Right, so not that everybody cares. And then, put my address on there. So Bob did his pretty much the same way, and his got a phone call. Now, he had taken his directly there on Thursday. I mailed mine late Thursday. They probably didn't put it in the mail till Friday. And we'll see what happens Monday. Right? But right now, Bob's got a meeting that he'll be doing with a dean. Rose got a meeting that she'll be doing with a dean. And anybody that has a frickin' court case... 1476, any person baptized or unbaptized can plead before a court. And 1361, a remission, which is also known as a remand, can be granted even to a person who is not present. You could use this to get somebody out of jail. You can say they don't have a sworn complaint. That's all you got to tell them. Right? So until they prove it, let them out. It's conditionally, let them out of prison until they prove their claim. They can't. There's no sworn complaint. the plaintiff in your foreclosure doesn't exist. It's not the name of the bank. It's a fictitious entity. Right? So I think in all these cases, the person that you have the complaint against, because this would all be contentious, right? So, and we go to the contentious, state the judge, so that's going to be the dean. And this is really supposed to be written like a letter, not like a formal letter, like a letter to a friend. State the judge before whom the case is to be introduced, what is being sought, and from whom it's being sought. The whom it was being sought, in my case, and what we're asking for the office, is the Pope. And not that this is contentious, but I'm using that as my basis of what's supposed to be in a petition. Because it says the petition by which a suit is introduced, right? So my suit is, I'm trying to claim an office if I need to. But it would be the attorney of record, I would say. It's not the judge, right? The judge didn't bring the charge. Who brought the charge against you? That's who we need to bring into court. It would be the assistant prosecuting attorney, or whoever name is on the paperwork bringing your ass to court, is the person. Now, you could list these other people, and you could put a copy of it in as evidence of what's going on, right? Like the fact that the summons is incorrect and everything is de facto and it's all color of law. And look, color of law is a hate crime. It's a crime against humanity. It's an international crime. So I don't think they'll play with it. So, okay, I got to leave it from there. I got some work to do, but I wanted to get this out, and we'll see what the first part of the week brings. Thanks for watching. See ya.